Well, good evening. I pray God's blessing upon you this night. I've been studying through Jeremiah and came upon something that struck a chord with me, I guess. Of course, Israel, like they did so often, has turned their back on God and have begun to worship the Baals and Ashtaroths and all of the false gods of the people around them. And in the midst of this, are still trying to please God, to make their sacrifices, do all the stuff that they do to go through the motions of serving God, and yet their heart is not there. And God is warning them through Jeremiah of what is to come. And in this little bit that we're going to be talking about today, Jeremiah is basically complaining to God with the age-old question, why is it that those that are rich and those that are doing evil are prospering and everyone else is suffering? And the age-old question that goes on there, and how long are you going to cause us to suffer for the things that we've done, all these things. And I read out of chapter 12, verse 5, and it really struck a note with me because if we read Scripture, we know that, and if we have any discernment at all, we look at the news and we realize that we are in a time where there's going to be great transition. There's going to be a lot of hardships. There's going to be some very hard times. And if you look around the world and see the poverty in many, many nations, you realize how blessed we are in this nation, how blessed we are by God, and how rich we are. Even those that are poor are richer than so many in other nations. And we've just been blessed. And as we know, again, the Word tells us that in the last days, hard times are going to come. It's going to be a difficult time. And as I read this, and the Lord's been dealing with us a long time for this, preparing for the hard times, preparing your heart spiritually, your mind mentally, your body as much as you can physically for hard times. And when I read this again, it just struck a note with me. And so let me read chapter 12, verse 5 out of Jeremiah. It says, "If you have run with the footmen, and they have wearied you, how then are you going to contend with horses? And if in the land of peace, in which you trusted, they wearied you, then how will you do in the flooding of the Jordan?" And it just brought me back to the place where we are right now. If we can't, in the time of prosperity, and I know again, well, we're not prospering because things are bad. No, we're still in such better shape than most ever nation there is, and most people that there are. And if we can't be content and trust in the Lord and be happy and willing to just move along and do the will of God in this atmosphere and the way things are now, then how are we going to do that when things get rough? If you're worried with when you run with the footmen, which is slow-paced, which is easier, yeah, you're on foot, but they're on foot, and you're fighting that battle against them. But how are you going to contend with horses? And you think back to the TV shows and things you've seen, the movies you've seen when the guys on the horses come in the battle and they're attacking the guys on foot. And the guy on the horse has, he has it much better because he's up high and he can look down on them. He's got this horse to run with him and protect him. He's faster. Everything's better. And the Lord's questioning him, and this was God's reply to Jeremiah from all his complaining. This is part of the reply. How are you going to contend with horses if you can't even contend with the footmen? Because it's going to get worse. And the Lord keeps telling us it's going to get worse. See, if you've read the Scriptures, if you know the Scriptures, you know it's going to get worse. And you know that times are going to get hard. And so I was thinking, okay, we have to prepare for hard times, and the Lord's been dealing with us in the church for a long time about doing that and preparing for that. But I got to thinking, how do we do that? I mean, how today, right, if I started right now, how would I prepare myself for hard times when there's going to be food shortages and electric shortages and all these things that are going to make it hard for us to live? Now, man, I'm not even talking about spiritually and the attack from the enemy. I'm just talking about physically. How am I going to do that? And a few things came to mind, and hopefully this will help you to prepare, because I believe that every one of us needs to be preparing for what is to come, the hard times that are to come. The Word talks to us constantly about fasting. And it seems to be a dirty word these days, because nobody wants to fast. We just want to fill our bellies and feel good and not do without. But if you know anything about fasting, it is a very good thing for you spiritually, and it's a very good thing for you physically, and not just a single meal. A long-term fast of a day or two is very healthy for the body, because it puts out different chemicals in the body that help to cleanse the body and use up some of the stuff that's in your body that's not good for you. And fasting is good physically, but it is very good for you spiritually. So one way to prepare for hard times is learn to fast and begin to fast, because it's hard. It's hard to do without food, and for your belly to rumble and you get the headache and all the stuff. But it trains the body, and it helps you to do it. Now, when you fast for the Lord, take that time and don't watch TV that hour that you would take for your lunch break or whatever. Use that time to pray and fast. Pray and study the Word and seek God's face during that time. That's how a spiritual fast works. But a physical fast, just doing without the food, occupy yourself other ways. But I would encourage you, if you're going to do it, bless yourself spiritually and give that time to the Lord. But we always, feel like, well, why should I give up now? Why should I put myself through these trials right now? It's coming. It's going to be hard enough. So why should I deal with it now? Live life to the fullest while we can, and we'll deal with this later. That's not the way it works. It's that much harder if it's sudden on you. The Bible talks about the race, the guy that's in the race. You don't just one day decide, well, I'm going to run a 10-mile race and practice a day or two, and okay, I'll run the race. You'll never make it, especially if you're not in the shape I'm in. You'll never make it. But you take time and you begin to prepare many, many weeks and months and maybe even years if you want to win that race. Prepare for that, strengthening your muscles and doing without, because runners and athletes and these people, they know what it's like to do without, because they have to be on very strict diets and all these things, and they know what it is to not get to go eat the burger and fries and all the stuff that everybody else eats. And it's kind of the thing that we need to begin to start doing in preparation for this. Give up a meal once in a while. Don't give up some of the things that you enjoy, some of the things you like, and start. Paul said, I beat my body daily. And some of these people get these flogs and they start hitting their back and all that. That's not what he's talking about. He says, I let my body understand that I'm in control. Excuse me. That I'm in control. Body's not in control. The body's going to hurt sometimes. The body's going to do without sometimes. But it's for my own good, for my body to do without sometimes, and for us not to have every little thing we desire, everything we want. Do without some stuff, because when times get hard, you're going to be doing without a lot of stuff. And we know that the Scripture's true and what it talks about. It goes to the point, and I believe we're not going to be here at that time. The rapture will already have taken place, but it comes to the place where it says that it takes a wheelbarrow full of gold even to buy a loaf of bread. And when that case comes, and most people are not going to have that much money, And the fact is that it's because the bread is so scarce that people are going to be starving to death and things are going to be really, really rough. So I just want to encourage you today to begin to prepare for what's to come. Don't try to keep living the life you're living just as long as you can, taking every penny you've got just to survive and thinking, well, I'll just deal with it later. Don't do that. Start preparing now. Put back resources now. Prepare your body now by fasting and doing without the things that you desire and the things you want. Do with less, and it'll make it easier when it's forced upon you, because most people, when it's forced upon them, we saw and heard about in the Great Depression when the banks crashed, how many people committed suicide because they just couldn't deal with less. They couldn't deal with that kind of catastrophe. And we don't want to be like that. If we prepare our hearts and our minds and our bodies, then we'll be able to sustain it, because if we don't, then how are we going to be here to witness? How are we going to be here to be a light in the darkness? Because as Christians, that's what we're brought here to do. That's what we're here for. And if we can't do that because we're so discouraged because we don't have everything we want, then we're not a light. We're doing no good. So I encourage you to think about this, pray about this, and begin to do without some stuff in preparation for what's coming, because we know there is suffering coming. But the good part about it is that God says that He suffered and we will suffer, but it's going to be worth it all when we get the prize, the reward that we get from Him, a heavenly home in eternity with Him. It's all worth it. It's all worth it. I love you, and I pray that this will help you to prepare. God bless you. Bye-bye.